We move to the second presentation today, which is about the future of maritime safety. Now, a bit of background about our speaker coming on stage. He started his career at Inmarsat in 2014 as Vice President of Service Delivery for the Maritime Business Unit, very on time, and he was instrumental in the launch of Inmarsat's high-speed broadband service Fleet Express, launched in March 2016. And here with us on stage, please welcome Senior Vice President of Safety and Regulatory, Inmarsat Maritime, Mr. Peter Broadhurst. The stage is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that kind introduction. So yeah, I'm the last speaker, so I've got a real honoured spot. And thank you very much to the MPA, and thank you for everybody for staying in the room as being the last speaker. I'm sure there'll be a great panel session after this. As you heard, I'm from Inmarsat, been with Inmarsat for 8 years, but I'm not here to talk about Inmarsat. I've got my kind of I was an ex-radio officer, I was at sea, so I support a lot of charities in the maritime industry, and I'm actually on the board of the WMU in terms of the work they do. I think it's fantastic for our industry. So I'm here to really represent our industry, and I've heard quite a lot around the way we go forward. So I hope we're all here to actually move the safety level forward, and that's what I'm trying to do with my presentation here. So it will be a little bit educational, entertainment, and perhaps a little bit controversial in some of the topics that I bring up. But it's all in the basis of collaboration, because we heard that. We have to collaborate. As an industry, we've got to move forward, and we've got some very big topics that we have got to cover. And safety, I believe, is one of the most important for this industry to really be sustainable in the future. So the first thing I'd like to talk about is our report that we just released just recently. It's called The Future of Maritime Safety. And in that, there's some maritime data from Inmarsat around where all the distress messages occur. So each year, since I've been there, and previously before that, we do an annual report. We say to IMSO, who audit us, these are the number of distress every year. IMSO put a paper into the IMO. These are the number of distress every year. We report it. I don't know why we report it. I don't know what actually happens to it. It gets noted. But each year, there's about 750 distress 750 vessels that send a distress. It's about the same. In COVID, it went up to 800 and something. And read the report. I won't spoil it. It's a great report, you know. And I won't spoil the ending because you're going to read that. It's like a little book. But it's not all about Inmarsat's data either. There's a number of contributors to that from different aspects of the industry. And I'll talk about some of the topics that they cover as we go through it. But the reason we've done this for the last 2 years is actually to get that data out there. Because we have some data. You know, why is it we have the same number of distress calls every year? Roughly the same number of distress calls. So in the report, we've broken it down by the type of vessel, where the distress were. And you can see the majority of distresses are around the coast. So we close waters. These are coming over Inmarsat services. I haven't got anything to back this up, because quite a lot of the distresses that are sent as undesignated distresses. They don't say whether it's fire, don't say whether it's a list-in or a ground-in or anything like that. They just say it's undesignated distress. And I'll get onto the distress phase a little bit later. But the idea is, we've got this data. It shows what's happening in the industry. Why aren't we using that data to improve it? Why aren't we collaborating with that data? Because I have this data now, I could name the vessel, I could name the owner of the vessel. I don't do that. In the report, it just says, this is the type of vessel, this is the flag of the vessel it's got there. But what it does show, I put the age in there, because it does have some correlation to the age in terms of the number of distresses. But this is data that we have. And building on the last speaker, our speaker, you know, I submit this data, Inmarsat submit this data. It's not checked. There's no cross-correlation or anything like that. It's the best data we have. We do it every year. But it's just like shipping. A lot of data is gathered and presented, but it's not used. So collaboration, we have data. Everybody has data. Let's try and use it to actually move forward. So, on that basis, if you're in shipping, well, actually, if you're not in shipping, then you shouldn't be in this room because you've wasted the today. But if you're in shipping, you'll be aware of this comment, which is fantastic. It really is a great statement. It's nothing to do with safety. But this, in an industry term, if you listen to read the 4 disciplines of execution, if you want to change something, the first thing you need to do is make a wildly important goal. That is a wildly important goal. That's got people's attention. You all know this, but that has really got your attention. This says, going back to, again, the previous speaker, culturally wise, as an industry, we have to change. First thing you need to do, and if we want to improve safety, first thing you need to do is create a wildly important goal, because that aligns people. That now means we're going to have to measure something. And that wildly important goal, I don't know whether this is how the IMO set it, but it does say what we're going to do. Now, it implies we're going to go and measure our greenhouse gases, because we've got to reduce them by 50%. And it implies that we're going to do carbon intensity. We're going to have to measure it. So we are going to have to start measuring it. That's the second thing you do in the 4 disciplines. First one, set a wildly important goal. Second, measure it. The third one is the lag indicators. So every year, I expect, or every 5 years, whatever, we're going to go and measure this and see where what we've done. But doing something, not doing anything, will just mean we're at the same place. So the fourth thing is the proactive bit, is the lead measure. What are we going to do differently now, going forward, that's going to generate this? That's the important thing. This is very aspirational. It's the right thing to do, but we still need to have those lead indicators. We need to say, over this period, we're going to do X, Y, and Z. And we saw from Knut's presentation about the change in the fuels and over the periods and things like that. We need to be able to say we're going to make these changes, and in that period, the change will occur. And we won't be surprised when we measure it again that the change has happened. That's how you change a culture. That's how you change an industry, because this is incredibly powerful. And I applaud that the IMO has been able to come together and do this and get that statement out there. And I hope that we can achieve it. So on the basis of that, what's wrong with that? We've just woken up to greenhouse gases. The last 5-6 years, it's kind of been hype, it's been driven, and we got there. Shipping's been around for 2,000 years. Why haven't we got this wildly important goal of reducing the number of fatalities? Why don't we really even know the number of fatalities? This is not poke at the IMO in any way of such a form. I'm just saying, as an industry, why aren't we saying this? Now, don't get me wrong, there's some fantastic initiatives going out there from countries, from industry groups, from individual shipping companies. Don't get me wrong, but they're doing it not as an industry, they're doing it what's right for them. We need to pull the industry, because if I was a seafarer and I saw that statement, I think that's a great, they're looking after me. They really are looking after the way I'm going. That's fantastic. And it's about the sustainability of our operations, because we need seafarers. There's no doubt about it. So that's what I'm saying is we have the data, we're going to have to measure it. It's out there. Let's clean it up. Got no problems with the previous speaker's statement about the quality of that data. But by using that data, we can really make improvements if we want to. And that's a question for the panel, really is. So then I want to come back to this reactive or proactive, the lead or lag. Because in the report that we generated, there's a section in there from Graham Henderson, who has an initiative called Together in Safety. And he makes a statement: we don't have accidents at sea. We only have incidents. Because we've been at sea for so long. An accident is something that's a surprise. Groundings, fires, we've had lots of them. Why have we not learnt from the past? Going back, again, to the previous speaker. Why have we not shared that information sufficiently to prevent this stuff? Now, things do change. I know container fires are... We've always had container fires, but they're more prominent these days, and lithium-ion batteries and all those sort of things. But the reality is the majority of the things that happen at sea are predictable. They occur time and time again. We are not learning. Again, back to my previous speaker, a lot of links with my previous speaker. We've got to learn from what is going on. And we've got to then use that learning to create the lead, so we can start reducing these things. We seem to accept the status quo. We seem to accept the number of casualties that went up last year, the number of vessels that we lose, the number of fatalities that we don't really record, the number of suicides that we don't really record. Something's wrong, in my opinion. And I'm quite happy to be slapped down by anybody who's out there in that respect. But I think we've got to start gathering that data. We have to have some way of bringing it together, knowing what the true picture is, and then using the evidence that we've got to create those lead indicators that give the cadence of accountability, that are predictive, that we can put in place that will actually improve the safety level in our industry as well as just in a fleet or in a company. I haven't got the silver bullet to do that. These conferences are fantastic for promoting it and bringing it forward, but we do need to make sure that we drive this through. Or next year, I'll report the same number of distresses. So let's go on to that. 2 definitions. The Maritime SAR Convention, a distress phase. As you can see there, the main bit there is the person, vessel or craft is threatened by grave and imminent danger and requires immediate assistance. Somebody sends a distress from a ship, that's what they want. Requires immediate assistance. The alert phase is a situation wherein apprehension exists as to the safety of a vessel and the persons on board. Inmarsat has distress, urgency, which is the alert phase, and safety messages capability. Nobody sends an urgency message. Hardly anybody sends it. When a vessel catches fire, goes into an alert phase. Small fire, engine room fire, for example, takes on some water, goes into alert phase. Hatch cover snap, go into alert phase. Listing, alert phase. Grounding, alert phase. We see distress. Captain doesn't report alert phases. It's reported on board. There's sensors that tell the crew there's a problem, but nobody else knows. And again, back to my previous speaker, reporting of that is very poor. We don't want to report it because there is this kind of, I might get a slap, or the captain may get sacked, or something may happen. So they work through the alert phase, gets to the distress phase. On the cases that we follow up with the distress phase, it's a very short time between pressing the distress and the crew abandoning the vessel, or even the vessel foundering and sinking. Really at the last minute. That's not a very good safety principle of the way we work, unfortunately. If we're going to go to maritime autonomous surface ships, MASS, the alert phase is where it all occurs. Can't allow it to get to the distress phase. If an autonomous ship has a fire on it, the alert phase, you can't wait till the distress phase. We're going to have to do that. And if we're going to do that in the future, we should be recording that now. And we can record it now, because it occurs. Sensors go off on the ship. That data is there. Again, it's not being reported very well. It's not being collated very well. But it's occurring. If that data didn't go off, the sensors didn't go off, tell you what's going on aboard the ship, then you wouldn't have an alert phase. So we need to start thinking about this alert phase. We need to start thinking when an anomaly occurs. That's what's happening in the Global Aviation Distress and Safety System, GADS, which is the equivalent of GMDSS. If an anomaly occurs on an aircraft, air traffic control is informed about it. Doesn't mean that the aircraft is going to crash or anything like that. It's an anomaly. It's something that's wrong. It's an alert. We need to start working in that alert phase and bringing that information back and doing something about it, because we can learn from that. We can learn why did a fire start? Why did the watertight doors not close? Why did all of these things where sensors are giving us feedback? We can start using that data to improve the situation. And we have to have a little bit of a change of mindset around that. So I will talk about one thing that Inmarsat has done, which is kind of aligned with MASS, and we call it automated safety. So everything that I said about that, fire alarms going off, ship listing, etc., etc., all of that data is fed into currently the VDR. It's captured by the VDR, stored inside the VDR in case the vessel sinks, and then we can go and collect the VDR and get the data. Okay, so all the data is there, but we're not actually going to use it unless the vessel sinks. So we put a little server in parallel with the VDR. And we take all the data before it goes into the VDR and store it in our little server. And because it's a little server, we can run a little bit of software on it. So we can work out predictively what's going on. We can see the alarm as soon as the ship starts to list, or we can see alarm as soon as the fire alarms go off. We can be in that alert phase because it's telling us. And then what we can do is take that data from the VDR and we can put it in the cloud. We can start putting it in the cloud now during the alert phase, should we need it. We can start listening to what's going on the bridge. We can start looking at the radar targets close to the vessel, or AIS targets close to the vessel, which is the nearest vessel that can aid assistance. Because when we get to the distress phase, we might need to have some support for that vessel. All of this is possible today. It's not new technology. It's possible. It can be done. Automated safety, as we say. But what's happening here is the sensors on board the ship are being reported at the same time as are being reported to the captain. So we have a bit of a conflict of interest now about how and who has this data. Because now we've got transparency of exactly what's going on board that vessel. And who should have access to that? Should it only be the ship owner? Should it be the ship management company? Because we can put all that data in the cloud, as Inmarsat, and anybody could have access to it. Marine Accident Investigation Bureau could have access to it. Port State Control could have access to it. We don't control who has access to it, but that's the reality of where we're at. And if this is an autonomous vessel, that data is going to have to go somewhere. Because even an autonomous vessel, let's face it, the environmental damage it can do should something go wrong is immense. So you still need to have some data coming back from that vessel. And you need to have that vessel data coming back in the alert phase as soon as the anomaly occurs, so that we can use that data to move it forward. So we've had this running for about a year. And some of the good things we can do about it is actually use some of the sensors to generate alert conditions. So if the vessel's doing 12 knots and all of a sudden decelerates to 1 knot or 0 knots in a time period within a certain time, that's a grounding. That's hit something. Simple logic. No reason for that. If a vessel lists and stays at the list, that's an anomaly. Shouldn't do, it should come back. But if it's staying at 30 degrees list, we've got a problem there. The crew are going to be running around trying to solve the problem. But the sensors actually said, we've got a problem. Let's let somebody know about it. Let's gather that data. Why did that occur? There's so many things like that that we can use data for. But it does mean that we're going to have to clean it up, make sure it's right, and who's going to use it? So it's definitely, technology is the enabler, not necessarily the solution. We've heard that about putting the internet on ships and opening up that source. It enables things, but you've still got to have some controls in place. But this is, I think, the direction that we need to be going in. As an industry, getting the right data, sharing that data, anonymizing that data if necessary, like we have done in the Maritime Safety Report, and then collaboratively, we can really make an impression and drive the safety up. That covers everything I want to do. It's a bit controversial. Don't get me wrong, this industry is doing a fantastic job, and this conference is brilliant about raising the level of safety. But we do need to go to that next step. And we really do need to look after the seafarers of the future and ensure that they have a fantastic and promising career ahead of them. That me, as an old guy, is going to help them do that. And that will be with your collaboration. Thank you very much.